This is Alex Holcomb with Applied Information Sciences, and in this how-to, I'm going to show how you can use a workflow to transfer records as part of an expiration policy. So in my Record Center, I want to create an expiration policy which will transfer records once they expire. Now the way I'm going to transfer them is through a custom workflow. So I've created a SharePoint sequential workflow project inside of Visual Studio, and I've added two activities to it. A code activity, which is actually going to do the transfer and write that event out to the SharePoint audit log. And finally, a send email activity, which is going to send an email to a group of users with a message that I've defined. Now, as part of my workflow, I've created an association form, and I'm going to use this form for association and initiation. And it's got three fields on it: transfer location, notification message, and notification group. This is where I'm going to define some of the parameters I'm going to use inside of my workflow. So transfer location is going to be the location where I want to transfer the record to. Notification message I'm going to use in two spots, and that's going to be part of the message that I write out to the audit log, and that's also going to be part of the message that I send out in an email, and that email is going to get sent out to this notification group, and that's going to either be a user or a group that is defined here. So this is an info path form, like I said, that I've associated with my workflow as both an association form and an initiation form. So if we go back to the workflow project, the first step in our onWorkflow activated activity is to get the values from that initiation form. So I've created some private variables here for transfer location, notification message, and notification group. These are going to hold the values that we're going to use later on. And these values are set based on what has been set in that initiation form. Now the next step of our workflow is our code activity, and this is where we actually transfer the record and write out to the audit log. Now the way I'm transferring the record here is I'm using the Content Migration API. You could use whatever you'd like here. If you want to actually write the bits of the file out to a specific location and deal with the metadata, you certainly can. I'm using the Content Migration API because it will write out the file as well as all of the metadata and wrap all those files up into a cab file for me. So the way I'm going to export it is first create an SP export object. This defines what I'm going to export and where that item is. The next is to set all the export settings for that object. So we create an SP export settings object. I'm going to export everything rather than do an incremental export. I'm going to include all of the security and all of the versions. You'll notice here I'm setting the auto-generate data file name to false. This is so I can give it my own name when I'm doing the export. So the name I'm going to give it is set in this base file name, and that's the document name.cab. I'm going to add a cab extension to that. The site URL, that's really the web URL where this item is located. File location, that's the location I want to transfer this file to, and that's defined, again, that's a transfer location that I've defined from the info path initiation form. So once I get all that set, I add my SP export object to this export object collection, and then the last step is to create a new SP export object, passing in all of these settings and do an export.run. This will actually export that file with all the metadata as that cab file. Now once the file is exported, the final step of this activity is to write that out to the audit event. So I call the item.audit.writeAuditEvent method. I pass in the type, which in this case I'm saying is a record transfer. The source I'm defining as the information management policy workflow, and then an XML message, which I'm just adding in that notification message that we retrieved from the info path form, and I'm wrapping that in a transfer message tag. So once all of that is complete, the last step we want to do is send an email out to our specified users. So I've just got a send email activity here, and I'm setting the to in the subject and the body. The to is that notification group value, and again, that's either a user or a group email address that I've defined. The subject, I'm hard coding here to record transfer notification, and then the body of that email message is going to be that notification message, again, that we retrieved from that info path form. So once I get all of this in place, I deploy it to SharePoint. And so what we want to do now is set it up on our list. So if we go back into our Records Center, I want to set this up on this project records list. So the first step is for me to associate that workflow with this list. And the way I do that is go to the library settings, go to workflow settings, and we want to associate our transfer workflow. So we set this workflow up. This is our initiation form or our association form. So the transfer location, I'm just going to set a local folder that I've got set up, the notification message. I just type in the message I want to write out to the audit log as well as be part of that email. And the notification group, this is just an email address that I'm going to define as the local administrator. So I go ahead and submit this, and this is going to associate that workflow with the list. So now it's available here. Now the last step is to actually create an expiration policy which is going to use that workflow as its activity. So the way we do that is we go back into the document library settings and we go to information management policy settings. And I define a policy. And in this case, I'm going to define an expiration policy. Now I'm going to set the expiration calculation based on this expiration now custom calculation formula. And this is an expiration formula that I've created in a previous how-to. What it's going to do is just set the expiration date as now. So any item that gets processed will be automatically expired. The last part is to set the action that's going to take place once the item does expire. And so I select the workflow for our record transfer. Right, so this is our custom workflow that we just created. Now the final step is to actually go ahead and execute this so that our record, which is here in Project Records, gets expired as well as gets processed. So we can set the expiration date just by modifying the properties. So if we go to edit the properties here, I'm just going to click OK. And what that's going to do is that's going to calculate the expiration for me. Let's go ahead and look at these properties. And we see that the expiration date is set to the current date and time. So the last step is to go ahead and execute our expiration policy. Now I've got two choices. I could either wait for the expiration policy job to run, and that'll run sometime in the middle of the night, or I can go ahead and try to initiate that myself. So what I've got set up is a helper application that I can use, which will go ahead and do the expiration for me. So inside of my helper project, all I'm doing is calling this expiration tasks.run method and passing in the site in which I want to run all my expiration tasks. So what this will do is process all of the items in my site, and I'm passing in the Record Center site, that are expired. So if we go ahead and run this, when this finishes, when we go back to our Record Center, we'll do a refresh here, and we'll see that our record transfer workflow is marked as complete. Now the document is still here, or the record is still in the library, because we didn't specify any other action to take place. So I could extend my workflow so that once it's transferred the file, it comes back and deletes it from the originating location, or maybe it leads a stuff file so that the metadata is still maintained. That can all be added and extended in our workflow. So if we go look at the location where these files were transferred to, it's my transfer location, you'll see I've got doc1.docx.cab. So this is the file name that I defined, right, which was the actual name of the file, .cab. And this cab file, again, is generated by the Content Migration API. If I open it up, you'll see there's a bunch of XML files. These describe all of the metadata and associated information with this record. And this .dat file is the actual document file. So if I take these files and export them from the cab, I'm going to change this .dat file to a .docx file. And when I open it up, you can see, in fact, it's the file that I originally exported. So I hope you've seen how you can create a workflow which will transfer records outside of the Record Center as part of their expiration policy.